All right, so the first presentation is going to be on the introduction, background, and updates to the Tier 2 Chemical Reporting Program. After that, we'll have accessing steers, using Tier 2 core data applications, and Tier 2 reporting. So the Texas Tier 2 program has existed for over 30 years. It's the largest program in the nation with over 78,000 facilities reporting. The program did move to TCEQ in 2015 from the Texas Department of State Health Services. And the TCEQ is a state repository for Tier 2 reports. We keep the reports that you submit for 30 years. That's our retention. So if any time you say you're doing an internal audit or some other type of audit and you need reports that go back several years, just let us know and we will provide those to you. For the past couple years of reporting, you can get those from the online system, but anything that is prior to us going to the online system, you'll need to ask us to provide those to you. So we're going to go through the system, background changes, payment information, and also steers account reminders. So what is Tier 2 report? So it provides specific information on the amounts and locations of hazardous and extremely hazardous substances present at a facility. And what you see here is an incident that happened in Harris County. There is also a Tier 1 report. It's a more basic chemical list where chemicals are grouped by physical hazard or health hazard. And the Tier 2 report has more information, and each chemical is identified and is required in most states, including Texas. These reports are used by emergency planning and response personnel to determine risk in their communities. And here's some other incidents that have occurred throughout the years. These are all incidents that occurred in Texas, and it's graphic representation of why the Tier 2, when the Tier 2 reports become important and why. So whenever something does happen, we will often get requests by first responders to want to know what chemicals are on site and what amount and where they are or were located. So as far as the laws and regulations, the federal law that's applicable to the program is the Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act, or EPCRA. This was created to help communities plan for chemical emergencies. Then we have the state laws, which is broken into 3 categories. We've got manufacturers, public employers, and non-manufacturers. And we'll get into later why it's important to be in the right category, because that determines the fee schedule that's used to assess your report. The rules can be found at 30 TAC 325. And this is actually a really good time to mention that we will be providing these PowerPoint presentations after the training is complete. So you'll be receiving these, and that way you'll be able to go back and reference any particular part of it. For example, if you wanted to come back and look at the rules and want to know exactly where it was that I said that was available. So incidents, there's a couple incidents depicted here that are outside of Texas. The upper left occurred in Bhopal, India, at the Union Carbide pesticide plant. It was 1984 in one of the world's worst industrial disasters. It released at least 30 tons of highly toxic gas. The death toll was around 15,000 and more than 600 people were exposed to the toxic gas. And the lower left in West in 2013, 15 died, mostly first responders, and more than 150 people were injured. 500 homes were turned to rubble because the blast leveled city blocks and left a crater 93 feet wide. And on the right-hand side, more recently, there was the incident in Beirut, and that was due to an explosion of poorly stored ammonium nitrate. It had been there for a while and became unstable and had an ignition source that detonated it. More than 200 were killed and more than 5,000 wounded. And also with this, it was the destruction of the nation's main granary, which was approximately 85% of Lebanon's supply of grain. So more in regards to ammonium nitrate, there's a few storage facilities in the state, and if you are one of them, you are in pretty constant contact with us, at least on a annual basis through the report and also site inspections. So after West explosion in 2013, the House Bill 942 strengthened the state rules for storing ammonium nitrate, including the requirement to store ammonium nitrate away from combustible materials, and also reporting to TCEQ with more stringent timeframes. So with ammonium nitrate, the timeframe is 72 hours, and turns out that we in turn have our own timeframe for reporting out to other agencies. We've got a timeframe after the report is received of 72 hours ourselves. The facilities must also register with the Office of the State Chemist, and that only came up recently. One facility was, well, they were told that and surprised. So if anybody out there is an ammonium nitrate storage facility and that's news to them, reach out to us. And I guess this is a good time also to mention, if you ever do have any questions or need assistance with your report, or you've had an inspection and you've got questions that you need answers to, feel free to contact us. We've got a link in the chat to the customer help form, which is the easiest way to reach us. And like I said, if you need anything at all, just let us know. So we did have rulemaking in 2020, and the reason for this was cleanup, clarity, and adding new information. We needed to remove obsolete references, and we wanted to provide consistency with federal rules. We clarified definitions, developed clear guidance for submitting the Tier 2 reports, reduced the number of reports that can be consolidated per fee in a submission was a big change as well. So we'll get into that later on when we talk about fees, about how many facilities can be consolidated based upon whether you're manufacturer, public employer, or non-manufacturer. So the updated rules, if you were to go to the link, these would be the sections that you can go through to see what the updated rules state. So highlights, let's see here. Oh yes, this is regarding storage, the facility location information. So we started issuing deficiencies on reports regarding location information a while back, and we needed to update those expectations in the rules. So it's extremely important for us to know where the facility is located, so that way we can let the LEPCs and fire departments know. And one particular area that we were lacking in the reports was if there was not an address and it was just driving directions. So we needed to clarify that if you are giving driving directions, make it descriptive, and also at the same time ask that you abbreviate certain parts of the directions so that it'll be a manageable amount of text. Who needs to report? So facilities storing hazardous chemicals at or above the reportable quantity are required to file a Tier 2 report. So what is a hazardous chemical? Well, any chemical which is classified as a physical or health hazard, simple asphyxiant, combustible dust, pyrophoric gas, or hazard not otherwise classified. And this information is found on the safety data sheet. Sometimes I'll talk with people and they don't have a safety data sheet, and that is something that you can request from your supplier. They should have given you that, and if they haven't, then when you request it, they'll provide you with the safety data sheet. It's got all of the information on it that you'll need when completing your Tier 2 report. So the safety data sheet includes detailed information prepared by the manufacturer. You could also search it up, the safety data sheet, but I do prefer that you get the one that is put together by the manufacturer. It describes the properties of each chemical and the physical health and environmental health hazards, protective measures, and safety precautions for handling the chemical. So laboratories, facilities, or shops that use chemicals must obtain a safety data sheet that's specific to each chemical used in the workplace. And it's supposed to be readily available to workers. So these are the parts of the safety data sheet. So sections 1 through 8 cover information on the chemical hazards, composition, emergency control measures, safe handling practices, and identification of the material. 9 through 11 and 16 cover technical and scientific information. Then 12 through 15 cover ecological, disposal, transport, and regulatory information. So where is the CAS number? So section 3, you can find the CAS number. When you're using our system, you'll see later on that it's going to be really useful to know what that CAS number is, so that way you can confirm that you are entering into our system the chemical that you have. So what is a CAS registry number? It is the chemical abstract number used to provide a unique, unmistakable identifier for chemical substances. So that's why I said it's really important when using our system. That way you're reporting to us what you have. Each CAS number is assigned to only one substance. All right, so let's talk about the difference between hazardous chemical and extremely hazardous substance. So for hazardous chemical, there is no list, and it's going to be those chemicals which you are required to have a safety data sheet on, and it's reportable to us if you have 10,000 pounds or more. Whereas an extremely hazardous substance is a list of 355 chemicals. It's an EPA list, And when reporting that to us, the threshold is 500 pounds or the threshold planning quantity, whichever is less. So let me explain that further. And let's see here. So the EHS list, it's the same list twice. When you open it up, you'll see that it's just the same information listed two different ways. Appendix A is listed in alphabetical order, and then the same chemicals are listed in Appendix B, but by CAS number. And let's talk a bit about when a chemical is reportable in the Tier 2 report. So, for example, chlorine has a threshold planning quantity of 100. You'll see that there at the bottom of the table, and is therefore reportable in the Tier 2 report at 100 pounds. But if you look a couple of lines up at chloridane, it has a threshold planning quantity of 1,000 pounds. So it is reportable at 500 pounds. So remember, the chemical is reportable at 500 pounds or the TPQ, whichever is less. So what are some common EHS chemicals? You've got ammonia, chlorine, and sulfuric acid. And a further example of why the CAS number is important is chemicals that are not EHS chemicals are chlorine bleach, and commercial ammonia is ammonia hydroxide. So you can see there's chlorine up top has a different CAS number from chlorine bleach down below. So just further example of why it's important to use the CAS numbers. So we've had this chart for a while, and it still is very useful if you trying to determine if you need to file a Tier 2 report for your chemicals. So I'm not going to go through each of the steps of it. Just want you to know that it is available, and there's a link in the bottom right to our website. We've got very useful resources there, videos, am I regulated, where this is found. We've got guidance there. It was referenced earlier on batteries. We've got guidance there on mixtures. So we've worked really hard to make sure that it's their website is relevant and provides you information that you'll find useful. So as far as gas and diesel fuel, there is a higher reporting threshold for retail fuel stations, which is shown on the right. If your facility is not a retail fuel station, then your threshold is 10,000 pounds. If you are a retail fuel station, gasoline is reportable at 75,000 gallons, and diesel is reportable at 100,000. And then there's conditions listed there for retail fuel stations. So like I said, if you're not one of those, yours is reportable at 10,000 pounds, which is for gas, 1,600 gallons, for diesel, 1,400 gallons. What is not reportable? So there's several things that do not have to be reported. Hazardous waste, tobacco, wood, articles. So articles are manufactured item formed to a specific shape as end use function based on its shape that does not result in exposure. So for example, PVC pipe is an article that is made of hazardous chemicals, but PVC pipe is not going to result in exposure to the hazardous chemicals that were used to make it. So food and food additive, anything regulated by U.S. Food and Drug Administration, and hazardous consumer products as defined by 15 U.S.C. 2051. So consumer product means any article for sale to a consumer for use in or around a household, school, or similar use. so consumer products. Some more items that are not reportable, anything that's in transit, so by pipeline, highway, or rail, hazardous substance in sealed package and not in a facility longer than 5 days, any radioactive waste, anything used in a research laboratory or hospital and is under the direct supervision of a technically qualified individual, such as a physician, nurse, or an individual holding a college bachelor's degree in science. Also, anything that's under routine agricultural operations or fertilizer held for sale by retailer to the ultimate consumer in finished form. So, for example, fertilizer, bags of fertilizer at Home Depot, and anything that does not meet threshold reporting amount. Sometimes some people filing reports will include things that are not reportable as part of their data management, and but you're not required to report anything to us that does not meet the threshold. Okay, so the types of reports, we do get a lot of question on which type of report do I need to select. And the annual report is what everybody's getting ready for right now. It's a yearly report for all reportable chemicals present anytime during the previous calendar year. And there are fees associated with the annual report. It's due between January 1st and March 1st. Whereas an initial report is for newly reported chemicals or for a new facility that was acquired. The initial report does incur fees as well. It is the initial report includes all chemicals at a site, including previously reported and newly added chemicals. It is due 90 days from the date a reportable amount is stored. The update report, now this is for a change or updated information for previously reported information. There is no fee associated with this. It's required for all changes or revised information for the facility, chemicals, or contacts. So no new chemicals can be added on an update report. You must use the initial report for that. The update reports are due 90 days from the date of a change. And then there's another type of report called the deficiency correction report. So this is sent from TCQ to the Tier 2 contact when errors are found in the report. And errors can be on a report that was reviewed, whether it's annual, initial, or update. And there's some common deficiencies that we see. And if you've received one of these deficiency correction reports, then what you'll get is a document there that says what we would like to have fixed. And of course, if you have any questions when you receive one of those, let us know. And once again, if you are a fertilizer grade ammonium nitrate storage facility, the initial and update reports are due within 72 hours of the change. So we're going to have a few slides clarifying the type of report because we've had a lot of questions over the years about it. The annual required every year, and it's got the due dates there. The initial only required if adding a new chemical or facility, and then the update for changes. So this is just another way of showing what I just went over. But these next few slides, starting with this one, are, I think, very useful in showing what we are talking about. So this shows the reporting period. And then it shows us going throughout the year into the next reporting period. So the initial and update reports can be filed any time of the year. For example, when a new chemical facility is added, you got 90 days. And then after that, let's say there's a change, but not a new chemical and not a new facility, you can file your update report within 90 days. So the reason that it's important for us to show this is because you don't want to just wait until annual reporting time to tell us all of your new chemicals and new facilities and changes. Just keep in mind that that those are due throughout the year based upon whether you're bringing on new chemicals or have changes. Something new this year is that you can start your draft annual report in November. So that's good news because you can start working on it now. Some companies have a lot of information to update for their annual report, and it can take a while. So you can start it now, but cannot submit it until 2022. Not much new here, except that if new facilities or chemicals are added after April 1st, an initial report is required. There is the time frame of the reporting season where you can file your annual report and not have to do a separate initial report. But then that functionality that in the system ends come April 1st. So if you've got questions about that, about which report types, specifically about initial annual. So if you're in the reporting period of January 1st to March 1st, you're not going to be filing. There's not going to be a reason for you to be filing an annual and an. You're going to roll everything into your annual report, and just let us know if you need clarification on that. So where to report? So the Tier 2 reports are reported online in STEERS, and though that satisfies reporting to TCEQ, so the system does not report those out to the LAPC and fire department. You still need to send those to your LAPC and fire department. And it's a good idea for you to get to know your LAPC. And so, you know, that's one of the reasons that we think it's best for you to have to send it to them so you know how to reach out and hopefully get involved. Many of the LAPCs are unfunded, but they do meet on a regular basis. So get involved and assist them with their emergency response planning. So what is on the Tier 2 report? So now we're actually, starting to get into some of the more specifics of what the expectation is in the reports. For the facility, we want the owner operator, the name, address, and coordinates. For the coordinates, you can get those from your desktop, or if you've got someone in the field that collects them, get those from them. The NAICS code, then we've got the TCEQ specific numbers, the customer number, the regulated entity number, and the TXT2 number, which is the program area ID. For the chemicals, we're going to need the chemical name, the physical properties and health effects, the chemical amount range, the maximum and average, and the precise location of hazardous chemicals within the facility. So that precise location, that's another area that in the past few years we've been issuing deficiencies because we need to know at the facility where it's at, not just that it's in a warehouse. We'd need to know which area of a warehouse. So we'll get into that later. The contact information, there's certain contact types are required. There's the owner operator, emergency contact, Tier 2 information contact, billing contact, and if there's an extremely hazardous substance that you're reporting, we'll also need a facility emergency coordinator. So the The owner operator, TCQ calls this the customer facility name. This is what we call the regulated entity number. The address includes street address or driving directions, the latitude, longitude, and on the facility information, we'll need to know is it manned or unmanned. And I used to get a lot of questions when I was doing the in-person class of, what number should that be? And what I tell people is, what's the most number of people that would be at that site at any given time? So let's say that it's some site that is only inspected, once a month, and there's only one person that goes out there, then it'd be one. But if it's a different location that can have up to 30 at a given time, then you'd put manned and indicate 30 people. And for the facility information, we'll need to have the NAICS code, which is the type of business that you're involved in. So the customer number is assigned to the company. Each CN can be affiliated with only one TXT2 number. The RN number, or regulated entity number, that's for the facility, and that's based upon location, whether it's address or physical location description. And that can be moved, that RN number can be moved or used by, multiple companies. So if you buy a facility, then that RN was under another CN previously, and now it's going to be put under your CN. The TXT2 number is assigned to the owner operator, and it can only be affiliated with one customer number. So additional information on the facility tab, or the facility section of Tier 2 reporting, is going to be a question of whether or not your facility is subject to the risk management program. And if it is, then you're aware of what that program is and submitting your documentation to EPA, and you would check yes for that question and provide the number. If you're not aware of any of those requirements, then you'll mark it no. And then there's a question, is your facility subject to emergency planning under APCRA 302, which is asking, do you have an EHS at its threshold planning quantity? And this is something that you have to mark as yes if you do have, for example, chlorine at 100 pounds or more. It would be nice if the system would mark it as yes for you based upon your chemical inventory, but it does not. And so this ends up being a common deficiency where, for example, chlorine has been reported, but this question has been left at the default of no rather than marked as yes. So as far as chemical information that we're going to need in the report, we'll need the chemical name, the CAS number. So that CAS number is required if it's an EHS. It's not required if it's not an EHS, but it is extremely useful in getting the right chemical reported. So we do recommend that you use the CAS number if you have it. The chemical physical properties and health effects, the amount, range, maximum, and average. And we'll go over later the importance of whether or not it's an EHS and how to get the right chemical. And once again, the precise location of the chemicals within the facility. So there's a couple ways to do this, and I always tell people work with which information you've currently got. So a written description, site plan with coordinate description, and in some cases a latitude, longitude. So we talked about this earlier, the safety data sheet. You can use, you should use that to identify the health effects and hazards. Now more about the descriptive locations. So this is showing, it's a very basic site map and showing where the gas and where the diesel is located. Now you don't have to provide a site plan, and you can use a rate description if that's what you've got or if that's easier. And if you do provide a site plan, it doesn't have to be elaborate. But in some cases, people already have elaborate site plans. This still pretty simple. There are some more complex ones that I've seen, and I would say though that in those more complex ones, if it says, if the site plan refers to a legend, please give us the legend. Otherwise, the map can be useless. For example, if this had several tank identifiers like tanks A1 through Z22, it would be completely useless without a legend of what is in each of those tanks. So on the contacts is, when you're first going through Tier 2 reporting and you're working on the contacts, it can be a little bit frustrating, and you can get some errors, validation errors on the contacts and not know what's going on. Like I said, with any of this stuff, don't get frustrated, just give us a call. But let me go through what the expectation is and the requirement. So emergency contact, you'll have to have 2 unique phone numbers. One number has to be a 24-hour phone type, and the number cannot be 911. You'll have to provide another number, and it cannot be the same as your 24-hour number. This needs to be a local individual. So for example, let's say there's an incident at the site, and there's a gate, it's locked, and we need to have a number of someone that can make decisions about the facility. Another contact type that's required is the Tier 2 information contact, the owner-operator contact, the billing contact, and then if an EHS is present, we'll also need a facility emergency coordinator. For each of these, we'll need a phone, address, and email. Okay, so let's talk about some of the updates to the system. So one of the big ones is that you can start your report early. You don't have to wait till January 1st to get started. We have improvements to the PDF and XML exports, and then some basic navigation updates to make it more usable. So this is really your first look at the system. We'll start to get into more and more screenshots of what the system looks like. This shows an annual report type 2021 and a report title. We do recommend that you use the report titles if you've got several facilities that are reporting, because when you have your report list, that report title will allow you to identify your facility. You can call that whatever you want to call it. You can call it your Dallas site, your Houston site. Some people just put, like here, the 2021 Tier 2 report, but you can use that in whichever way you need. You could also call it, for example, if you're going to report quarterly, you can call it your Houston quarter 1, Houston quarter 2, so forth throughout the year. We have some updates on the way the PDF looks. So this is, for example, something that you're going to want to, you may want to print out for your records. As far as your requirement on retention, you have to either have a hard copy or have the report accessible on a computer. So if you do print it out, which several people do, we've made some items bold. We added that hazard not otherwise classified, and let's see, we added where the dates of the facility being open or closed. So what we're trying to do is make this a comparable printout of EPA's Cameo exports. So the report list, you have a new landing screen. It shows the reporting history. The report search was removed. So if you're new, it's not going to matter to you, but if you're reporting last year, this will now be accessed from a hyperlink, which will be displayed below the page title. So this is what the reports list looks like. And you'll notice on that first line, it says annual 2020. And then on the far right, way over on the far right of the screen, it says files. Well, you'll see that you can click on that to get your PDF, or to the right of that, you can click to get your data file, the XML file. And when you're sending reports to your LEPC and fire department, if you're, we've got a list of what format they prefer, but if you're not sure which format, I always suggest go ahead and send them the PDF and the data file. And if you can, send the email to your LEPC and fire department in the same email. Just put them both on it and put both files, and you're done with that part of it. We do have a new sorting feature, which is really exciting. It's going to be useful for those of you that have a lot of information to sort, because you can sort by more than one column at a time. You just have to use the control key. After you've chosen one, you can use the control key to choose another column to sort by. Oh, and this is another slide. I guess I jumped the gun on illustrating where the files are located, but it's extremely handy. It's such a better way of accessing the files than what we've done in the past. So we're really excited about that. If there's other reports from previous years, you can still access those as well. Okay, so fee message is something new as well. Was added to the banner. The fees for draft or initial annual reports will be assessed upon submission of the report. When the facility is federal government, the message would be no fees are applicable for submitting this report. So we're trying to clarify, what's going to happen after you submit this. And then also here on the contacts, a note that each draft report can have only one billing contact. Marking this contact as a billing contact type will automatically add it to all the other facility records included in this draft report. Okay, and now this slide covers something that catches people off guard every couple of years. So the steers account must be renewed every 2 years. The account holder will receive an automatically generated email from steers notifying that their account's going to expire if they don't take action. This is what that email looks like. Nothing to be alarmed about. You're just going to have to submit a steers participation agreement, and if you're in Texas, you can use your driver's license, and if you're out of state, then you'll want to plan ahead and get this SPA into the mail to us as soon as you can after receiving this notification. All right, fees. Oh yeah, so we're going to talk about fees. So there's fees for the annual and initial reports. There's no initial report fees for public employers, but there are for you public employers in your annual reports. You will have fees assessed on your annual reports. The fees are based on the NASCS code. So like I said before, manufacturer, non-manufacturer, or public employer. and also based upon the number of facilities in the report and the number of chemicals in each facility. And just as a note, if you're reporting a facility that has both manufacturing and non-manufacturing NASCS codes, that facility will be billed at the manufacturing rates. As far as the fee consolidation, so the fee consolidations for multiple facilities owned by one operator and must have fewer than 25 chemicals, must be filed by single operator on the same report. So the manufacturer can consolidate 2 facilities for a fee of 100. The non-manufacturer can consolidate 3 for a fee of 50. And the public employer can consolidate 7 facilities for a fee of $50. We've got a further information on this. If you need that, submit a help form, and we'd be glad to provide that information to you. The system does calculate these fees, which is very useful. In the past, that was not done, and we haven't had any issues with it miscalculating. But like I said, if you do have any questions or concerns, just let us know. And I guess it's also a good time to mention, please don't submit your report until you've got all the facilities in it that you're going to report, all the chemicals, because a fee is assessed each time that you submit a report. So make sure that you're ready to submit it when you do so. There are penalty and interest on delinquent fees. So along with developing an online system and having a system that assesses the fees, we do have this part of it as well, which is out of the control of the Tier 2 program. It puts all the financial aspect with our billing department, which means that there's time frames on when a fee becomes late, and there's associated penalties. And if you do have any outstanding balance, it will prevent you from getting new permits or registrations. So when you go to, like say, for even the Tier 2 report, if there's other programs that you have delinquent fees on, you're going to have issues with that until you get up to date on any fees that you might owe. Okay, so the deficiency correction reports. So we review the reports. We are working on a plan of going through all the reports that are submitted. So there will be times that you'll get a deficiency notification if there was any issue. And there are some common areas. And for example, in the facility, are the coordinates for the facility correct? If there's no street address, are the driving directions accurate and extensive enough for someone who's never been there to know where to go? The chemicals, is there a map provided? And if not, is there specific chemical location information that can be used by emergency planners or response personnel? And again, that issue of all EHS chemicals listed as EHS. As far as contacts, this is one that it may be the only deficiency that we found, and we're going through, and it's going to take us a while to find all of these where the contact doesn't have 2 unique phone numbers. It's really important because sometimes we'll have questions and we'll try to contact somebody in the report to ask you a question, and sometimes we have trouble reaching somebody, and that's not a situation that we want to have occur when there's an emergency. So it's really important to have good contact numbers. So there are increased investigations by by TCEQ regional offices. According to the rules, TCEQ representatives may enter a facility at reasonable times to conduct compliance investigation, and advance notice is not required. So more and more investigations are being conducted. We'll say that, you know, if you get a violation, let us know. You know, the investigator is probably going to let us know within a day or two. But regardless of that, you should reach out to us so we can help you get into compliance, because, well, if you're in the training, you're already a leg up and probably not going to be in that boat. But if you do need assistance from us in getting into compliance, then just reach out. Your Tier 2 reports to match the reportable chemicals on site. And then there's, you know, more language there about the report types, which we covered. And your chemical storage locations should match your Tier 2 report. The investigator should be able to find your chemical locations based on the information in your report. So keep it up to date. So those update reports are going to be really handy in keeping you in compliance. There's, like, I don't know how many ways to say it. There's just more oversight into the Tier 2 reports than in the past. So for anybody who's been doing it for, say, you know, 10 or 15, 20 years, you know, just realize that it is important to keep those chemical locations up to date. As far as resources, so I talked about, I think every one of these. This is a really useful page if you come back and you're like, what was he talking about and where did I find it? So this particular slide is near the end of presentation 1. Okay, but how to get notifications. So years back, there used to be postcards that were sent out. We haven't done that in quite a while, a few years now. It used to be postcards that were sent out saying, hey, you know, make sure you do your Tier 2 report. Well, we don't do that. Instead, we send emails out whenever we've got updates or any relevant information to the program that we feel that we need to make you aware of. We don't do it too terribly often, and we do make sure that it's only when necessary. So from the TCEQ main page, you go down to Get Involved / Customer Services. Click on Get Email or Text Updates, and it's not just our program that you can choose from. There's a whole bunch that you can choose from. I've even got some that I went through and selected that are of interest to me. And then, of course, if you get tired of hearing from us or it's not relevant, you can unsubscribe from it. Let's see. So there's our contact information. And this Tier 2 help form is a really handy thing that we implemented just past couple of years, and is really your best way of getting in touch with us, because it gives you an opportunity to tell us who you are, what your issue is, and then it's assigned in the order that's received, versus the way we had some issues a few years back when the online reporting system came out, and that was the reason that we've got this system now, because it's a fair system and it's actually more efficient than anything we've ever worked with in the past as far as customer service.